Hello, it's Ren Presents time. I'm your host, Ren, and today we continue with the Hazards of the Old Ones, Part 3, Chapter 20, Marilith's Communicator. And I'm not really sure why, but this particular chapter has never been one of my favorites. Not really sure why. I mean, it's not a very long chapter, and it suffices in moving the plot along and accomplishing a few obstacles, or overcoming a few obstacles, I should say. But I don't know, I think maybe in hindsight I could have done something more innovative, more cool, more unique, I guess. I'm not sure. Last week we saw Lord Milton of Hershey reveal himself as the main bad guy of the story. He has, via technological means, copied Kara Hill's little coin that Lady Poe had created to summon Kara Hill to her presence upon demand, and is able to access the ship even though it's very far away from Cana. And invisibly, he's been doing his deviltry behind the scenes. He tried to kill them with Red Haas, he disconnected the helm wheel, and then he tried to blow away the lot of them. He shot Sage of Ruthven in the chest, he shot Tori Jane of Wham in the throat, and then also shot the Duke in the chest, and he tried to put a bullet into Lady Poe. However, she snatched that bullet right out of the air with Silvertech. Lady Poe is actually pretty tough, and if you've read the Shadowtech Goddess book, maybe that might clear things up a little bit, just saying. She also tried to shoot Peter of Ruthven in the head, and Lady Poe wasn't having it, so she Silvertech that bullet out of the air too. She then created a few of those handy-dandy fins fish that can heal just about anything, and patched everybody right up, while Lord Milton apparently made his escape. This week, Marilith's Communicator, where Captain Davage and his party try to get a message out to the Seeker up in orbit. He's unaware of all these horrendous things that have been happening, but of course horrendous things have been happening to him that the ship is not aware of, so I guess it evens out. Again, I don't know. I think I could have done something cooler, more cool. I don't know. It's okay. It's fine. But I don't know. I just wish a true artiste is never really satisfied. I'm like, this chapter could have been the bomb, but it's just okay. It's like a grenade instead of a bomb. In any event, let us proceed immediately. Part 3, Chapter 20, Marilith's Communicator. Davage, Sig, Kai, and Inez stood on the ladder in the dark. "Do you see anything, Dav?" Sig asked. Same thing as before. 5 black hats, lots of Hulgismen. He reached down and yanked on his car, which had gotten stuck in the tight quarters. "So what are we gonna do, just sit here?" Inez asked. He looked around. "Well, I suppose we could..." In an instant, a commotion rose from down below. The black hats and Hulgismen went to the edge of the corridor and looked down. In the lowest courtyard, he saw something and he was horrified. Ragged people were running along the wall. Men, women, some carrying infants. And they were in a shooting gallery. The black hats fired Shadowtech blasts at them. Hulgismen charged down from the heights. "Good creation!" Davage yelled. "Are they insane?" The black hats on their level, howling and laughing, filtered to the edge of the corridor and began firing shadow tech at the people below. The Hulgusman leapt down. The two in the communications room exited to join the fun. Down below, the people running against the wall were being blown apart. Men, women, the infected, and the wounded fell in a savage gallery of shadow tech blasts and barbs. Davage, in disbelief, saw people down, people dying, people dead. An infant struggled under the bulk of its fallen mother. He saw the frightened survivors backed into a corner and several black hats slowly advancing on their position, savoring the kill. "We're going!" he roared. "Sig, they're all standing on the edge of the parapet, looking down to the courtyards below. Sweep them down!" Davage tore through the doorways, followed by Sig, Enes, and Kai. Sig, refreshed from her sleep and feeling much better, sent a huge column of silver tech roaring down the corridor. The column slammed into the unaware black hats and Hulgusman, blowing some apart, sending the rest toppling down in a naked, erratic heap. The passageway was cleared of enemies. Davage unsaddled his card. Lining up a black hat far below, he threw his card, sending it down in a lopsided, whistling frenzy. It passed through the black hat's chest and stuck into the ground. "Get in there and send word to the ship." With that, he wafted away and into the chaos below. He reappeared down in the courtyard, standing in front of the frightened peasants. With mims drawn, he retrieved his card and stood ready, facing the hordes. Dumbly, blindly, the ragged survivors just stood there, watching him. The black hats raised their arms, and the Hulgusman advanced in earnest. "Back!" Davage roared, lighting his sight. "Get back!" Though they were wearing those strange goggles, ostensibly to protect themselves from his sight, the black hats covered their eyes to keep from seeing. They cowered, truly frightened of it. Black hats were normally fearless. The Hulgusman, naked, illuminated in the golden light, stood and stared. He panned this way and that, lighting them up, the black hats trying to avoid his gaze. And then the sky blackened. He looked up. A looming, shadow-tech beast, miles tall, breathed in a passing cloud, towered over the keep, and was sending a gigantic tentacle down into the courtyard. It was huge. It blotted out the sky. Kai and Enes ran into the communications room. The near end of the chamber was decorated in the Xandar fashion with intricate rugs of lurid colors, dyed veils, and a copious amount of pillows and poofs. At the far end of the room was the machine. It was a huge communications device. It looked like Ming Morland technology. Very powerful, very expensive. Enes and Kai looked it over. "Wow," he said. "Princess Marilith wasn't fooling around with this stuff, was she?" "Nope. Ultrawave. It's an ultrawave," Kai said, flipping switches. "Do you know what you're doing?" "Can you reach the ship?" Enes asked, watching her adjusting the controls. "Half a moment." A soft wave of air filled the room. Enes, alerted, looked around. "Here, look here, we're sending. The ultrawave cut through the interference the STTs are creating like nothing. Enes activated his Gertz and drew his staff. "Kai, there's someone in here with us," he said, climbing the walls. Kai continued keying in the data transmission. "Are you sure?" She looked back in time to feel a hard punch go across her face and then quickly to her stomach, two of the hardest punches she'd ever felt. Kai was a veteran of many, many fights, with the bums in Tusk, the tramps in the Marines, and often with Dav in the gym. Sig, too. Sig could hit hard for such a tiny woman, but these were ruinously hard punches. Tweeter, sitting on her shoulder, took flight and landed on the communications device. She swung back in response, her fists swishing through the air. Another massive blow to the gut, and then what felt like a boot heel to the face. Kai went flying. "The princess, she's in here with us under cloak," Enes roared. Guessing where the princess might be, Enes jumped down and fanned the area with his whirling jet staff. He heard and felt nothing, but thought he saw the staff shudder once or twice, possibly hitting a cloaked person. Pow! Pow! His lip opened up, and then a crushing blow to the side of his face sent him sprawling. She had to be unarmed, having lost her weapon in the chaos of the battle. Otherwise, they'd both be dead by now. Kai went to draw her gun, but it wasn't there. Her SK now apparently gripped in the hand of a mad, cloaked princess. It too fell into the cloak as well, the hallmark of a good paint. "Inez!" she cried, diving for cover. "Move! Keep moving! She's got my SK!" Inez hit his girts and, moving as only a hospitaller can, began a fast crawl run on the wall like a big black and silver gecko. A throaty, high-powered slug hit the wall right behind him, making a pockmark the size of a small crater. More craters blossomed behind him as he desperately ran. Inez added wings to his feet and tore across the wall. A loud, plaster-destroying auto shot followed him in a dusty trail, sending bits of wall everywhere. The cloak was perfect. Kai could see the shots hitting the wall, but could see no indication where the princess was standing. Heard nothing, and she didn't even smell the gun smoke, though no doubt the room was probably full of it. The communications device was peppered with shots. It protested a moment, and then Marilith's communicator died in smoke and went quiet. Tweeter again took flight, looking for a safe place to land. And then Kai saw something. With his silver light filling the room, Kai thought she saw the faintest outline of a small girl holding a huge SK. Kai lunged, tackling empty air. She rolled to the ground and began punching over and over as hard as she could. She had no idea if she was hitting anything, but after a few swings, her fists got that ragged, chipped around the edges feeling she usually got after being in a fight. Her SK reappeared and clattered to the floor, apparently dropped from the princess's hand. She reared back for a haymaker and got socked in the jaw. Kai, usually able to take a good punch, was stunned with the force of the blow. Another punch sent her sideways. She felt something light jump on top of her and start biting her cheek, drawing blood. In a flurry, Inez sprang off the wall and sent his jet staff whirling over Kai's head. A huge blast of wind whistled through the room. The thick smell of gun smoke filled the room as the cloak dropped. "She's gone. She wafted away," Kai said, her face bleeding. "You all right, Kai?" "Yeah." "How is she shooting at me? Where's your palm sprander?" I took that thing off years ago, Inez. If you're worth your stuff, you don't get disarmed." He helped her up, and Tweeter landed on her shoulder. They looked at the shot-up communicator. "Did you get the signal out?" "Yes, but just for a bit. I think enough to send the captain's code and to ask for a rip car." Inez grabbed the dazed Kai and exited the room and helped her back into the tunnel hatch. Davage looked at the gigantic tentacle coming down from the dizzying heights. Such a thing will demolish the entire courtyard, himself, the refugees, black hats, and all. He illuminated it in his sight, and it appeared to bubble and smoke, but it didn't stop. It kept coming. There was a blast of wind. Sig wafted down from the heights. She reached up and sent a huge gout of Silvertech skyward. "Dav, I'm going to kill you later," Sig roared as she coated the tentacle in silver. "Don't you ever do something like that again," she yelled, her eyes alight with green fire. The creature appeared tentative and confused. It pulled back the silver-coated tentacle and looked at it, watching as it began to dissolve. The Silvertech ate through the Shadowtech like acid. Dissolving Shadowtech came down in a foul rainstorm. Sig then threw up a huge silver bubble, covering Davage and the refugees. Davage picked a trembling child up and gave him to one of the peasants. "Get back into the tunnels," he said. "All of you." He looked around. "Wait," he said. "Wait. You've got wounded. Get these wounded to safety." The refugees stopped. "But," one said softly, "they're all dead." Davage sighed. "No, look there. That man is alive. Look there. That woman needs assistance. Over there, that child. There, and there," he said, pointing with his carg. The refugees did as they were told and were astounded. Davage was right. Many of the fallen were simply wounded. The shield recoiled from a powerful explosion from outside. "Dav!" Sig yelled. "Hurry, we've got to get out of here." Davage returned to Sig's side and led her towards the tunnel entrance. "Sorry, Sig," he said. "I couldn't bear to see these people dying just for us." Slaughtered. You scared me to death, love. He closed the tunnel door behind him and kissed her. Leave the shield. Let them batter it down. They'll find nothing. Slowly, they advanced into the depths of the tunnel. Lieutenant Verlin, Peter of Ruthven, and Lady Poe of Blanchford stood in a lonely section of Deck 6 in the neck of the ship. The Duke, Tori Jane, and Sage were all crowded into the dispensary, each out of danger, but tired and needing rest. Johnny was in the dispensary with them, on guard in case Lord Milton should try again. A bowl of water containing a school of several Finn's fish sat on the desk, if they were needed. Verlin didn't really know what to do. With the captain gone, with a mad, invisible killer on the loose, she was standing in the hallway discussing sensitive ship security matters with two civilians. One, a lady of standing who was once infamous for being mentally ill, and the other an alleged pirate. But what else was she supposed to do? She was in command of a ship surrounded by literally thousands of enemies. She had to adapt, be flexible, and use the resources available to her. She guessed that's something the captain would do. A group of 3 sisters stood nearby. Here, right here, they are detecting an energy flux, Verlin said, and they're not detecting any additional people on the ship, cloaked or otherwise. So that's a relief in any event, she said. Peter looked at the floor. I suppose then that Lord Milton is no longer aboard the ship, but rather back at his manor in Esther. Sage had mentioned the medallion. The medallion must be some type of point-to-point teleporter. Therefore, in order to make use of it, you will need medallion A, for example, at one end, and medallion B at the other. Is that how it works, Lady Poe? Well, yes, I suppose so. It just works. So this medallion B, if true, will have to be around here somewhere, Verlin said. And I'm guessing that's probably fairly small in either one of our ships or on us at the moment. Peter looked down at himself. It must be, and medallion B has to be cloaked. He turned to Lieutenant Verlin. Lieutenant, could the sisters check us for cloaked items? You needn't ask me, Lord Ruthven. Ask them directly, please. The sisters stood, headdresses bobbing. Sisters, could you please do us the honor of scanning us for cloaked devices? The sisters looked them over. Lieutenant Verlin spoke up. The sisters say you are not carrying any cloaked devices. They do say, however, you are armed to the whiskers, which I will be speaking to you and the Duke about later. This medallion B has to be on one of our ships. Sisters, Peter said, could we please check our ships for cloaked devices? Verlin spoke up. They will be delighted. The comm crackled to life overhead. Lieutenant, we have just received a signal from the planet's surface. It's Captain Davage. Verlin lit up. The captain? Are we sure? The signal contained his personal code. It's him. There can be no doubt. What is his status? He is barricaded in Xandar Keep. He reports many black hats in the area, along with several thousand Hogelsmen and several gigantic Shadowtech beasts. He is requesting a Ripcar sent down on manual pilot. Once received, he will fly it out to safety. Verlin shook her head. No, unacceptable. A Ripcar, unarmed, will get blasted out of the sky. The Seeker, under cloak and unseen, can at least fight the hordes back long enough to collect the captain and be off. With any luck, the lost company will call in whilst we're en route. Com informed the helm we are going down and will pick up the captain personally. Lieutenant, the helm reports it is not advisable to enter the planet's surface at this time. Com informed the helm her opinion is noted. However, we are going down, and I suggest the helm set herself to it. Verlin out. And with that, we conclude Part 3, Chapter 20, Marilith's Communicator. So, in previous chapters, King Balor of Xandar had said that he would create a diversion, clearing out the Black Hats and allowing Captain Davage access to the communications device. And the diversion he planned was just to basically sacrifice themselves to the mercy of the Black Hats, and they have none, so the Black Hats were killing them wholesale. Captain Davage was shocked. heartbroken seeing these poor people getting blasted away. Women, men, children, the whole lot. He went down and faced the Black Hats personally, and then Sig with a Silvertech bubble helped them escape. Kai and Inez were able to use the communications device and get a message out to the ship. When Inez mentions Kai's palm sprander, on her SK weapon, there's a circuitry in the palm that basically allows the gun to know who is holding it. And the gun is programmed to only fire for one person, for its designated user. If, say, the Marine is disarmed and someone else grabs the SK, the palm sprander will prevent them from firing the gun. But most Marines, Kai included, take the palm sprander off because it makes the gun too heavy. That's the general reasoning to take it off. So most Marines, worth their salt, at least that's their story, take the safety device off. And Kai had taken it off. And Princess Vrock, under cloak, disarmed Kai and started using her giant SK against them. But Inez is just too fast, and when I say he's walking on the walls, that's exactly what I mean. They can run and walk on the walls using magnetism. These GERTs I talk about, they're magnetic, and he can basically walk on the walls and the ceiling like a fly. He can't stay there for very long, but as long as he's moving, as long as he's not just dead weight, he can do these things. Most Hospitallers can do that. The captain says he wants a rip car sent down, but Lieutenant Verlin believes that a rip car would get just blown out of the sky by the Black Hats. It'd be safer and better if the Seeker went down under cloak to pick him up. But the helmsman, sorry, is like, well, this helm is so out of balance, I don't advise entering the atmosphere. But Verlin says, I don't care what you advise, we're going down. So that was that chapter. Again, I always think I could have done that better. I get it serves its purpose, and that scene is important later on. We will see that scene will affect Captain Davage and how he feels about these Xandarians, the enemy, the Zaffins, technically, and that the request King Balor made to Captain Davage now takes on a different light, now that he's seeing these people acting selflessly and bravely and sacrificing themselves for what they believe is a greater purpose. So we'll see how that affects Captain Davage in the future. Next week, chapter 21, The Demon. So we go from a chapter that is not one of my favorites to one that is one of my favorites. I like this chapter quite a bit. We get up to date with the plight of our friendly neighborhood Carahil, who's trapped in a magic circle, and we see how he's doing back on Cana in Lord Milton's laboratory. So until then, this is Ren Presents. I am your host, Ren. Peace out.